Zoom tech. No,
Tech.
this is the Zoom tech.
Yes. Yeah. I've started the recording.
No, it's the Zoom tech that does the recording. And the reason the Zoom tech does the recording is because the Zoom tech is the host. And the reason the Zoom tech is the host is that sometimes the Zoom tech is going to private chat to people who are having trouble with Zoom. And we don't want their private chat to show on the screen that everyone here in the auditorium can see. The screen that everyone can see is the room tech screen. Exactly. Yes. Yeah, the Zoom chair, interacts with is kind of responsible for the human dynamic, and the Zoom tech is responsible for the technical dynamic. It may be that this was a mistake to separate these roles. I thought it made sense to separate them. I'm having second thoughts about that. So as we go through the conference, if everybody starts to feel they should be smushed together, we can smush them together, because honestly, we have some sessions on Saturday when we only have one person lined up for them anyway. The last conference I did like this, I didn't have enough people on the team, and maybe I overcorrected for that. Okay, so this is started. So
good afternoon, and welcome to the beautiful Algonquin Conference Center, session 6F. And today I would like to introduce our two presenters, who will then introduce themselves, and a third presenter who is not with us. So I'm going to turn things over to Beatrice and Bruno. What? I couldn't hear that.
Are you muted?
I was muted that whole time. Okay. Tough luck. We'll just pretend I wasn't, and you guys can take it away from here.
Well, thank you so much for introducing us, Deborah. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm just going to share my screen right now. And this afternoon, we are going to present a response and adaptation to COVID-19 pandemic in Brazilian eco-villages. How does the slide look like? Is it fine? Is it widescreen? Is it okay?
I think it looks good.
Okay, this is me, this is her, and Rebecca is not here, but she will be attending online on the presentation moment. I think everything is okay. Thank you so much for the test.
Oh, good.
And now I'll pass on to the next presenter.
So who are our remote people? Do we have anybody who's trying to slides up right now?
Yes, I am. It's Marquis. I'm also presenting. So I'll share my screen. It's just okay. So thank you very much. Very nice to listen, to see some of you. And well, this is the presentation. So is everything okay in terms of the what you're looking at and the sound? And
yeah, I think the sound is a little bit too low for us in Algonquin. Don't you feel that?
Mm-hmm.
so is that on my side or is that on your side?
A lot better now. Oh.
Okay, so that means that I need to be a bit closer to the microphone. Thank you for letting me know. Sounds good?
Good.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
If you have any questions, I'll be here tomorrow.
Great.
Actually, this is a good time to experiment with inviting questions from the audience now that both
Oh,
of our
good
presenters have
idea.
had their chance.
Okay, do we have any questions for Marquis or Beatrice or Bruna? Jan?
No, no, no. Use the microphone. No, no, you need to get to a microphone.
Oh, they have to walk up here? No, I guess they get given.
Hello, do you hear me, everybody?
No.
You don't? This one up here. Hello? Oh. This one, is that right? Yeah, there are things on here. How's the weather in Canada right now?
Well, the good news is that we do have weather. Looking at it on the positive side, no, it's a lovely day. It's still early, right? It's 9:30 in the morning, so it's about 20 degrees for now, Celsius.
Thank you. I'll put that in my next dissertation.
Thank you.
Do we have any other questions? Anton, was your hand up earlier?
Okay, so
No.
room chairs should be alternating with Zoom chairs
Ah,
in
okay,
calling on people.
okay.
So anybody who has a question in the room has to,
So
hold up
Amy,
for a
is
little
Amy
bit.
our Zoom chair?
but here is another problem that
Okay.
I've been waiting for a chance to tell everybody about. It's really important before the Zoom tech disables the chat, that they make sure everybody who's supposed to be a co-host is a co-host, because once the chat is disabled, it becomes a lot harder for people like Amy to let us know that she has not been made a co-host and is thus incapable of performing her Zoom chair duties. For example, something that she as Zoom chair could have done a little bit ago would have been to send a message to everybody on the chat saying, sorry, Deborah's mic was muted when she was introducing the session. We'll start over. But because Amy wasn't a co-host, she wasn't able to do that. And Amy, are you a co-host now? So room techs, it looks like you still have hosting privileges. So please make Amy a co-host. And really, Amsala should be the host. And it would also be good if Marquis were a co-host. Maybe he is already.
Oh. Oh, so I should have it on.
Yes, and Amy is the person who's supposed to call on her, and that's what we're trying to get to. Huh. Yeah. Klaus, you are the only person who can make Amy a co-host. So Amsala should be the host. And Amy should be a co-host. Right, Amsala should be host. And if you could make me a co-host as well, that would be lovely. Yeah. So Amsala, you should make Amy a host now. I mean, a co-host, thank you. And if you could make me one too, that would be great. Okay, Amy, you can now kick into your duties calling on virtual participants to ask their questions. Yeah, that would be great. No, that's what she did. She invited Libby to unmute herself.
So I'm asking a question now, and that's my question. I think that's it.
Yeah, and another question you might have asked, Libby, is whether the Zoom tech could remove the spotlight on Marquis and spotlight you instead while asking your question.
That's what I was trying to say. Thank you, Dan, for articulating that so well. I did actually have a question that now I can't remember, so maybe I'll raise my hand again later.
So then the question calling on responsibility falls to Deborah again.
Are there other questions for our participants? Helen?
Yes, I wanted to ask Marquis the name of the cat in the picture behind you on the wall.
Oh, thank you. Her name is Chelsea.
That's very informative, and I now that's transformed my life. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. She has also transformed my life.
Oh, cats have a habit of doing that.
Amy, do we have any additional questions from the virtual world?
Yes. I'm sorry if I can speak. I have a question. Sylvia speaking. Yeah. I've been obliged to leave you for something like 10 minutes. And when I came back, it seems to me that you spoke about introductions of the speakers. And I was wondering if the Zoom room or share room will introduce the speakers, or if the speakers have to introduce themselves. Well, that's it.
Yep, that you're absolutely right. We did talk about that while you were away, and it is the room chair who is responsible for introducing all the speakers.
All right. Thanks you so much. Thanks for updating.
Thank you.
Dan, do you have a preference if we do it, introduce everybody at the beginning, or do we do it one by one?
Yeah, that's really up to the room chair, whatever
Okay.
is most comfortable for you.
Okay. So do we have any more room questions? Rains.
I need a microphone to be able to ask the question.
Okay, Helen, what happened to it? Oh, you gave it back.
Hi, I have a question in the room, and I was wondering if this study carries across virtual communities and in-person communities equally in all your research.
Thank you for your question. That's going to be a long answer, so I'm just going to stop now.
Okay, so Dan, do you want to move on to different groups of people?
Yeah, I actually want to address a couple of other questions that came up in the chat. So Kirsten had trouble finding the raise hand icon. And it does always look a little different in everybody's Zoom screen. If somebody is really good at explaining how to find the raise hand icon, I invite you to speak now and do that explaining.
This is in the on the bottom of the screen. There is a little a smiley with a plus on its head, and when you click on it, you can have different icons, but also you can have raise your hand.
Thank you. I would add, if you don't see the word reactions and a smiley, it may be because there's not enough room to display it. And in that case, you probably do see the word more with 3 dots. And if you click on that more, it will give you all the things that didn't have room to show
Yeah.
otherwise, and reactions will be among them.
I've had my hand up for a bit, and the virtual hand on there, and nobody seems to be seeing it. I also put a question in the chat. So somebody who's doing this virtual responsibility should probably look in both places. And I would like to know if you painted those cats. Marquis?
No, I'm not the, I wish I was, but no, it's a painter here from Ottawa.
Nice.
Thank you.
Do you have more than one cat?
At that time, I had 3. Now I have 1. Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think just on the fact that you had your hand up and weren't called on, Annette, I think it's a reminder that Zoom chairs should probably call on people both with the chat and if they have access to a mic with the voice. Yeah, exactly. I heard you asking, and I was wondering if you were muted when you were asking, but yeah. Annette, are you able to hear Amy now?
You were muted before, but I think you unmuted yourself. Why don't you talk, Amy, so I can see if I can hear you? She can't hear me.
Hello, hello. No, it's good.
Yes, okay. I can hear you now.
Perfect.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. I think that's right. The Zoom chairs should have the headpiece, and the Zoom tech, having host privileges, is confident of your ability to communicate via chat. Yeah. And if you really get stuck, then sitting in the back, you can go out the door and unmute yourself. Libby also asked a question about the Dropbox and who has access to the files in the Dropbox. I think it's going to be simplest for us if it's simply the room techs that have that access. So if you need something displayed that you put in the Dropbox, alert the Zoom tech.
It looks like Jan has a question. Feel free to unmute yourself. Jan.
Hello? Good. As the room chair of the next session, I would like to remind us that we have 20 minutes left of this session. Thank you.
I actually have a question, Dan, about timekeeping. So as a room chair, what happens when a virtual person maybe is talking longer than they should? Whose responsibility is it to tell them like it's time and they need to stop? Is it mine? Do I cut in, or do one of the Zoom people do that?
Yeah, so it's generally the Zoom chairs who manage time for Zoom presenters.
Okay.
And so, you should have worked out an agreement in advance about how you're going to signal the person. If they're going over by a few minutes, don't sweat it. But if somebody is going way over and are unresponsive to admonitions in private chat to please stop, any co-host has the power to mute them, and that is your last resort. But as room chair, yeah, you would not have any direct responsibility, but you might try to signal to the Zoom chair to exercise their responsibility more strongly.
But if the Zoom chair is not in the room, I wouldn't be able to do that.
Yeah, often they will be in the room, but You might have to collude with the room tech. If you're not yourself connected to the Zoom meeting, you might have to collude with the room tech on that.
Non,
Yeah.
mais franchement, j'ai vraiment pas envie de rester dans ces. Ah, pardon, merde, je suis en train de-
There's a problem with that because if you have a PowerPoint presentation, it takes up the entire screen. You cannot see the chat box.
Yeah.
So if you're trying to signal the person who's going over, you're going to have to do some other dramatic thing besides trying to communicate to the chat. It's not going to work.
Okay, this is a dramatic thing. I'm just room chair right now and we're going over time. And I'm saying as room chair, I have the authority to stop the session right now and we'll end it. I think that's the only way we can do this.
Look at this
Because
too.
the room chair will have the microphone on as much as they want and they can always cut in to somebody if they're not responsible. That's my suggestion for that.
Yeah, so we're talking about two different issues now. Deborah was talking about the issue of a presenter who goes wildly over and how you stop them. And it is true that you do have the power of your own microphone, that you can talk over them. Annette was asking about the situation of an innocent presenter who wants help keeping time, but is doing a screen share that prevents them from seeing anything. So that's just something to take up with your chair, before the session starts. If you know that you're yourself a really reliable timekeeper, you can just say, I don't need a reminder. If you know you need a reminder and you're not afraid of being embarrassed, you can ask the chair to give you a verbal reminder to actually cut in and say, you've just got 2 minutes left, or whatever it might be. I wish this is one of the most annoying things about Zoom is the way it does PowerPoints. It depends on how they have set up their computer, unless they're slide sharing, in which case, no matter what they do, they cannot see them.
We have a question from Libby.
I'll share in a moment. I'm looking something up.
And Dan, how much in advance can we get into a room before our sessions typically?
So the instructions ask that people be in the room at least 15 minutes in advance. There are half-hour breaks between sessions during the day.
Okay.
There's one special situation that we didn't quite think about, and this has to do with the 9:15 sessions, which come immediately after the morning singing. So in those cases, if people who are in a 9:15 session that is in the auditorium should try to arrive at 8:45 and do that checking in work before the morning singing starts. And I know not necessarily everybody who needed to hear that is present right now, but just to spread the word about that. I'm going to try to reach out to the individuals involved. Cynthia?
For fielding questions from the live audience, we need to move the mic around. So we need someone who's handy to do that, to bring the mic to where the questions are. And so maybe it's the Zoom chair who is doing that and just fielding all of the questions, live and virtual.
Yeah, we can't uniformly ask Zoom chairs to do that because some of them are not here in person. I think it may be. I think that's probably the easiest. So kind of the biggest takeaway I'm getting from this whole tech rehearsal is that this will all work out beautifully if we're all super patient and we assume things aren't necessarily going to be as brisk as they would be in a simpler conference format. If you say your introductory piece and then it becomes clear that only half the audience heard it, you can just say it again and we'll all hear new nuances in your introductions that we didn't hear the first time, and it'll be great. So everybody just constantly remind one another we can just kind of relax into it. If things take a little longer than they would otherwise, we're here to be together and make connections.
Just a tip for room chairs. So I was, muting myself anytime I wasn't talking so people wouldn't hear me heavy breathing or anything like that. But one time I pressed the button for too long and I turned this off and I didn't realize it and I couldn't figure out how to turn it back on. But thankfully I have a younger person here who could help me figure out how to turn it back on. So just make sure that you just tap it briefly to mute it.
And I would like to make a suggestion for the chairman or woman in person. When we have a question from the audience, the person who wants to ask maybe to raise the hand, wait for the volunteer to come with the mic, and then we are looking at each other. So then once you already acknowledge the person who wants to ask the question has the microphone, then call the person to make the question. It will save time, maybe.
Is there anyone here who wanted to practice something that they haven't had a chance to practice yet? Yes, Amsala.
Haven't shared. Someone had.
We cannot hear people in the room there.
Right now, share their screen.
Oh, yeah. So Amsala, I think you're maybe not hearable. So I'll repeat what you just asked for the folks on Zoom, which has to do with, we haven't practiced yet sharing screens sharing slides. Yeah, so could you just show a random set of slides from the Dropbox?
Okay.
Or did you want him to show your slides from the Dropbox? There's always going to be a room tech in the room. It's a team of 3, 1 for each room. And they'll all have access to the Dropbox, we hope. And Libby posted something interesting in the chat. If I understand it correctly, the problem I was describing about sharing slides is a real problem, but it's not quite as stark as I thought, that there is a special method for at least being able to see the chat while you're screen sharing. I don't know that it will allow you to see your own notes, but it will let you see the chat. And
There is a way to also see your own notes, but
okay.
That's another step. I mean, I can share that also, but that might be more complicated, but YouTube is very helpful with this stuff.
Thank you, Libby.
And I'm sorry, I just have a very last question, and this is about timing, and it's we are still on 20 minutes for each presenter. That's it, 20 minutes. We're still on this timing for the presentations. And what do we do if the Zoom link collapse or there is something wrong with it? It can happen. It happened to me many times on Zoom meetings. So I was just wondering if you even send a new link by email and then we just have to go in our mailbox to get it and to come back on connections. Because it can happen that sometimes when Zoom links are edited long before the meeting, the link is kind of corrupted, I guess. So
yeah, let's do those in reverse order. So The Zoom links have both been sent to you by email and are in the online version of the program.
All right.
And if we need to change them,
Mm-hmm.
we will do our best to change them in both places, both to send a
Okay.
fresh email and to update the links in the online version of the program. And just to, the way it's going to be in the online version of the program is where the name of the room is for the
Mhm.
physical participants
Yeah.
is where the link is for the virtual participants.
All right. Thanks.
You just find the name of the room and click on that, and it should open the Zoom room.
All right.
The line between the real and the imaginary to blur, which is what we try to do when we create a utopian community.
That's right. Thanks. We have to find ways. And about the timing of the presentation, 20 minutes will be all right? Is it you? Do you confirm that? Uh-huh.
Oh, yes. Sorry, Sylvia, you had the question about timing as well.
Yeah, yeah.
So I put out the 20-minute rule as a sort of baseline. That's the ordinary expectation.
Yeah,
and given what we've learned today about the importance of being patient and kind of rolling with some technical difficulties, it's best to stick to that rule, to include time for questions. But we do have fairly generous time frames.
Okay. Okay. Sounds really clear to me. Thank you.
Thank you. So we're trying to wrap this up.
Just a real quick question. I sent my slides into the Dropbox, but if I want to maneuver them myself, I just sent them as a fail-safe just in case everything falls apart, right? So I can maneuver them myself if I want to, right? But they're in your system. So in case I need backup, it's there. Is that acceptable?
That is totally acceptable. Yes. And
Okay.
Amsala just noted another challenge with the Dropbox room text. Make sure that those slides are visible both to the in-person audience and to the Zoom audience. It appeared just now they were made visible in person, but not on Zoom. Thank you. Okay, everybody, thank you so much for your patience.
Thank you.
We've learned a lot. We're going to keep getting better, and we're going to do it together. So it's wonderful to spend this afternoon with all of you.
Thank you, Dan. Thank you. See you tomorrow.
Thank you so much.
And you're welcome to stay on the line if you'd like to observe the board meeting.
Oh,
wish I could.
That's nice. No, thanks. See you tomorrow.
Hi, Ruth. Welcome. We're wrapping up our tech rehearsal and getting ready for the board meeting.
I can't see you. Am I supposed to see you? Or?
You're not supposed to see me.
Okay.
But now you can see our
okay.
hall here in the Aldonicon.
I believe you there. Okay.
Now you can see the back of my head.
Fine. Hi, Bill.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Well, it's midnight here and I'm still trying to wake up. I've just jumped on bed.
Dan?
Yes.
Oh, I first of all want to apologize. I didn't realize you were sending me this material this morning. So sent it out a bit late. So I imagine that not everybody received it. But I'm sorry, I didn't know.
Not a problem.
Okay.
Okay, now it's all coming through. I can see everybody fine now.
It sure is. In 5 minutes, if we're ready, which seems unlikely. Hello, how are you?